back with Hank Zipser. Somebody get me out of fourth grade. We still have the same list of characters. We have Hank. Frankie is best friend. Ashley, best friend. Miss Adolph, the teacher, fourth grade teacher, and Nick the Tick McKelty, who is the bully. They are trying to figure out if Hank is going to have to repeat the fourth grade. So they go into the classroom, and Ashley is kind of like the decoy. She's going to signal if Miss Adolph is coming back into the classroom, and Frankie and Hank are going to look into the roll book. So we left off there, and the only thing that we saw in the roll book, or that Hank saw in the roll book, was he saw the words redo. So we are on chapter 6. I barely noticed anything around me on the walk home. It was like all the great sights and smells of my neighborhood didn't exist. I didn't smell the sausages cooking on a Mears cart on Columbus Avenue, or hear the guy playing saxophone at the subway entrance, or notice the taxis weaving in and out of the traffic. As I walked home with Frankie and Ashley, all I talked about was what I saw in Miss Adolph's roll book. Redo. We arrived home, went directly to Ashley's apartment, and plopped ourselves down at the kitchen table. Frankie, Ashley, and I live in the same apartment building on 78th Street, and we always go to one of our apartments for a snack when we don't have an after-school activity. The only activity that I had planned for that day was to worry. Have a fried wonton, Ashley said. Ash, are you crazy? I answered. You expect me to eat at a time like this? Take one, Frankie said. Everyone needs something crunchy when they're in a crisis. Oh yeah? Says who? It's basic, my man, Frankie said. Why do you think baseball players eat crunchy sunflower seeds when they're waiting on the bench? Crunchy for crisis. Yeah, Ashley agreed. My mom goes through half a bag of potato chips when she misses a Jeopardy question. We're not talking about a game here, guys, I said, reaching for a peanut butter and jelly sandwich instead. Ashley's grandma, who has lived with them ever since she came from China last year, had made us her special snack platter, peanut butter and jelly on Wonder Bread, with a side of fried wontons and hot mustard. If you've never had Chinese hot mustard, then let me just warn you that it's something you've got to be really careful with. If you eat a little bit too much of that stuff, the fumes go shooting out your nose, and before you know it, water comes flying out of your eyeballs. And I don't mean like a few tiny tears, but more like blasts from a giant-sized super squirt gun. I swallowed the peanut butter and jelly in one gulp without even tasting it. Man, are you grumpified, Frankie said. I know I'm in a bad mood, I answered, and I have every right to be. Wouldn't you be if someone told you that you're going to have to spend the next year in fourth grade again? But you don't know if that's true for sure, Zip. Correction, you don't know for sure. Ashley doesn't know for sure. Her tropical fish don't know for sure. But oh yes, I know for sure. I hated the sound of my own voice, but I couldn't help it because I was mad. Ashley's grandma came to the table, picked up the platter of wontons, and offered me one. She said something in Chinese, which I couldn't understand, but after she said it, Ashley burst out laughing. What's so funny? I asked. She said if you eat something crunchy, you won't be so grumpy. Fine, I said. If it makes everybody feel better, I'll eat a wonton. In fact, I'll eat the whole plate of them. I reached out and grabbed a wonton like an eagle swooping down to catch a fish. Without even thinking about it, I swirled it around in that hot mustard and popped the entire thing in my mouth. Is everybody happy now? I said with my mouth full. Ashley, Frankie, and Grandma Juan just stared at me. Not crunchy enough for you? I said. Great, watch this. I grabbed another one, dragged it through the hot mustard, and popped that one into my mouth too. I looked like a chipmunk with wonton in each cheek. And then the mustard kicked in and exploded like a crazed pinball inside my mouth. Up my nose, around my eyes, and into my brain it spun. Wham! Bam! Pow! I felt like all the hairs on my head were standing straight up and about to take off into space like mini rockets. I let out a yell that was so loud it probably shattered the glass windows in Mr. Anthony's dry cleaners 3 blocks away. Zowie! I shouted. Zowie, wowie, kabowie, which in case you don't speak my language means, ouch, my tongue is on fire. I had to do something about the flames in my mouth. After hopping around like a crazed jumping bean, I pulled my chair over to the freezer and jumped up on the chair so I was tall enough to open the freezer door. I yanked it open, stuck my head right inside, flopping my burning tongue onto a carton of mint chocolate chip Haagen-Dazs ice cream where it stuck like glue. Now, my tongue was burning hot and cold at the same time. Weird. Grandma Wong was shouting commands at me, but they were in Chinese, so I didn't follow them. Couldn't follow them. She says, "Get some plain bread," Ashley translated. "Tongue stuck," I answered, shaking my head at Ashley. "Hank, I can't understand you." I pointed to my tongue, which was now stuck to the half-gallon of ice cream. "Tongue stuck," I said even louder this time. In case you're laughing right now, let me just ask you to try talking clearly when you have a carton of ice cream hanging off your tongue. It's not that easy. Frankie came to the freezer and picked up the Haagen-Dazs container with my tongue attached. He took us both to the sink, Mr. Haagen-Dazs and me. When we got there, he took a glass of water and poured it along the side of the container. I could feel my tongue peel off the container little by little. "Breathe, Zip," said Frankie. "Your tongue needs oxygen. Breathe." I took his advice and breathed deeply. Wow, was my nose ever clear. It was so open that a 740 jet could have flown straight up there and into it and done some back loops. "Hank, you've got to try to calm down." Ashley gave me a comforting pat on the shoulder. "You've gotten yourself into a total twist." "But all I can think about is that parent-teacher conference," I said. "I keep seeing Miss Adolph sitting there telling my mom and dad that I'm going to have to repeat 4th grade. And just the thought of that scene makes me feel like I should reach for another fried wonton." "Don't go there, Zip," Frankie said, putting his hand out to stop me. "Let's be reasonable about this." "What's the worst thing that could happen?" Ashley said. "Your parents go to the teacher conferences, and you sit down with Miss Adolph and hear a little bit of bad news." "Yeah, that," I answered. "That is the worst thing that could happen." "You can't stop it, Hank," Ashley said with a deep sigh. "It's a parent-teacher conference. Everyone has one." "Well, I wish I could think of a way from them to stop them from meeting," I said. "If my parents never met with Miss Adolph, they'll never know there's a problem, and then before you know it, summer will be over, and then I'll just slide into 5th grade with everybody else." "Zangawi," Frankie said, "just like magic?" Frankie is a great musician, and Zangawi is his special magic word. He uses it to make spongy rubber balls disappear or to pull scarves out of his sleeve. Boy, how I wished it would work to make this parent-teacher conference disappear. Ashley twirled her ponytail around her finger like she does when she's thinking. "I have an idea," she said. "Why don't you just say, 'Hey, Mom and Dad, would you mind just skipping that meeting with my teacher? Just do it for me, would ya?'" "I could ask them," I said. "I could work." "Right. And my name is Bernice," Frankie answered. "Come on, Frankie," Ashley said, popping a peanut butter and jelly sandwich into her mouth. "Let's put our heads together. The three of us can think of a way to stop Hank's parents from meeting with Miss Adolph." "Well, we could spray Miss Adolph with invisible ink," I said. "Then she'd disappear, and when my parents go to the meeting, all they would see is an empty chair." "Okay, dude," Frankie said. "It's finally happened. You've seen one too many action cartoons." Okay, I did have to give him that. The invisible ink idea was very lame. I shoved my brain into action. I stared at the window above the kitchen sink. A teapot sat on the windowsill. Ashley's family always has tea with their dinner. I like that. It kind of feels warm and cozy and comforting. Man, it was quiet in there. No, it wasn't. In the silence, I became aware that the radio was on. It had been on the whole time. We always listened to Cousin Ralphie's Top 40 Hour on WFUN 99.10 on your radio dial. And believe it or not, it was Cousin Ralphie who had the idea that was going to save my life. "Cousin Ralphie," I shouted, springing up from Ashley's bright red kitchen table. "I know you can't hear me, but you're the man, and I am your biggest fan." Chapter 7. I dropped to the kitchen floor and started rolling around on Ashley's pink and white speckled linoleum. It's a good thing Grandma Wong had left the kitchen to watch that show that she never misses during the day, SpongeBob SquarePants. I know it might seem a little weird for a 76-year-old lady from Canton to love SpongeBob, but some things you just can't explain. SpongeBob tickles her funny bone. "Zip, are your pants on fire? Or have you totally just lost your mind? Frankie asked. No, my mind is on fire, I answered. Cousin Ralphie just delivered the answer to all my problems. I don't get it, Ashley said. All he said was the 15th caller who could name 10 American cities with the word rock in them wins a trip to Philadelphia for the opening concert of Stone Cold Rock. True, Ash, but you're leaving out the most important date. It's the date. May 24th and May 25th, Frankie said. What's the deal about that? Frankie, my man, I said, getting up from the floor. When exactly are fourth grade parent-teacher conferences? Well, this Friday. Today is Tuesday, so what does that make? Friday, May... How does the 25th sound, I asked, grinning like a mouse that had just eaten a giant piece of Swiss cheese. Okay, Ashley said. So Stone Cold Rock is opening at the same time as the parent-teacher conferences. How does that help you? Guess who's going to win the contest and send his parents to the opening? I said. Where did Cousin Ralphie say the concert was? Ashley asked. Philadelphia, I said. And even though I'm not a geography expert, let me point out one thing. People who are in Philadelphia cannot be in New York attending a parent-teacher conference. It is a well-known fact. This plan might actually have some possibilities, Frankie said. That was a big compliment coming from him because Frankie is a plan-making genius. If you want stuff done, you ask Frankie. Philadelphia, city of brotherly love, I hollered, drumming out a beat on Ashley's kitchen table. Roll out the welcome mat because here comes Stan and Randy Zipser. That's my parents. Ashley went into action as only she can do. When there's something that has to get done, you want Ashley Wong to be in charge. She's all business. What caller did Cousin Ralphie say you would have to be to win the contest, she asked. I think it was the 15th. She turned the radio up loud. Well, that was the third caller, Cousin Ralphie announced. Let's take a break and hear from the good folks at Gristanio's Market, where the shelves are full and that's no bull. We've got to move fast, Ashley said. She grabbed a piece of paper from the counter and picked up a pencil. I need 10 cities with the word rock in them, she said. Quick. Little Rock, Arkansas, Frankie said. That's one. Come on, guys, I said. Only 9 more to go. What about Rockville Center, Long Island? Ashley said. Excellent. Write it down. Only 8 more. My friends know that when it comes to writing things down fast, they better not count on me to write it down accurately, because I'm not exactly Mr. Accurate. There was a pause. I noticed that we were all being silent, and I wasn't liking the silence. I looked over at Frankie. Name a couple more, I coaxed him. I'm all out, he said, shaking his head. I got no ideas. Me either, Ashley said. There's only one person we know who can spit out 8 cities with the word rock in them. And I think we all know who I'm talking about, I announced. I was thinking, of course, of Robert Upchurch, who hibernates in his apartment on the 3rd floor of our building. That is, when he's not hanging out with my nerdball geek of a sister. Even though he's only a 3rd grader, Robert is like a walking encyclopedia. That kid has so much information crammed into his bony little skull that sometimes I think he has a computer for a brain. Frankie and Ashley and I try to keep our distance from Robert because he wants to be our best friend, and when you least expect it, he wakes up from hibernation and attaches himself to you like a garden snail. He's kind of slimy, too. His nose produces more mucus than all the noses in the entire state of Louisiana. And for his birthday, his mom actually buys him a crate of Kleenex, and he needs another crate by Christmas. He's got slightly used super absorbent Kleenex wadded up in every pocket of his clothes. Gross! And don't even ask what's living in the little compartments of his backpack. You don't want to know. Robert's best friend happens to be my sister, Emily, who doesn't seem to mind his leaky nasal issues. That's because she is the queen of the nerds herself. They both love her pet iguana, Catherine, and can spend hours and hours discussing the different feel of lizard skin in all 4 seasons. Dude, Frankie said, snap out of it. This is a serious decision. We go get Robert, and he's going to think we want to be best friends with him. We'll never shake him. Guys, do we have a choice? Ashley asked. No, we don't. They're probably on the 5th caller. Let's get Robert now. He's in my apartment hanging out with Emily, I said. I'll call him. I dialed my number. It rang 4 times. Then I heard my sister's voice on the answering machine. This is the Zipser residence, home of Stan, Randy, Hank, Emily, and Catherine Zipser. Please leave a message and the name of your favorite reptile at the beep. Hank Zipser, I said into the phone, and I don't have a favorite reptile, and I think they're all scaly and creepy. I hung up. So they're not home? Ashley asked. I thought you said Robert was up there. He is, I answered. My dad's just not picking up the phone. He doesn't even hear it sometimes when he's in the middle of a really intense crossword puzzle. Ashley threw on her baseball cap and bolted for the door. Come on, guys, she said. No time for the elevator. We're taking the back stairs. Ashley's apartment is on the 4th floor, and I live on the 10th. We dashed out of her apartment and ran up 6 flights to my floor. When we got up to my floor, I pulled my key out of my pocket, but I was so nervous I couldn't even get the key into the keyhole. Here, give me that, Frankie said. And he grabbed the key from me and stuck it in the lock. He tried to turn it, but the lock didn't open. Are you sure this is the right key, he asked. I'll take it from here, I said. Every lock has a little secret. And the thing about ours is that after you put the key in, you have to pull it out just a fraction of a smidge. Oh, look at that math term. Before you turn it, I did that, and voila, the door opened. My dad was sitting there at the dining room table. He's a computer consultant, so he has to work from home a lot. He likes that because he can hang out in his boxers and do crossword puzzles whenever he gets bored. He's kind of a crossword puzzle genius, if there's such a thing. That's going to be important in this book, so remember Hank's dad is going to be a crossword puzzle genius. Hi, kids, he said, barely looking up from his newspaper. What's the rush, he said, wearing his blue boxers with the sailboats that matched his favorite metallic blue mechanical pencil, which was stuck behind his ear. Hi, Dad, I called back. I knew I didn't really have to answer his question because he had that I'm deep into finding a 7-letter name of a province in South Korea expression on his face. In other words, he wasn't going to listen to them anyways because he was thinking hard. We whizzed down the hall and flew into my sister Emily's room where I knew the nerd and the nerdette were hanging out. When I came flying into the room, I never expected to see what I saw. Robert and Emily were hunched over Catherine, the iguana, who was lying across them both, her scaly, ugly head resting in Emily's scaly, ugly lap. Robert was handling an eyedropper filled with what looked and smelled like chicken soup to Emily, who was squirting the yellow liquid into Catherine's mouth. Don't you guys knock, Emily said. Catherine's not feeling well. Really? She doesn't look any worse than usual, I said. Hank, you have no sensitivity to the iguana world? Emily, it really hurts me to hear you say that, I said, clutching my heart like she was breaking it. Hank, this is no time for sarcasm, Ashley said. You're right, I said. Ash, turn on the radio and see what caller we're up to. Robert, get your brain over here. We need ya. Ashley switched the radio from Emily's country music station. Told you she was a nerd. To W Fun. Cousin Ralphie was just saying that the 12th caller had phoned. Great, I said. We still have 4 callers left. Make that 3, Zip, Frankie whispered. 15 minus 12 is 3. Frankie knows that Math and I don't party much together, and he's really nice about not embarrassing me about it in public. If Emily had noticed me make that mistake, I would never have heard the end of it. Emily doesn't make math mistakes, or any other kind of mistakes for that matter. She is a super brain. Robert, I said, we need 8 cities that have the word rock in them, not counting Little Rock and Rockville Center. Can you do it? Robert nodded. Of course, he said. I can also name 40 countries that produce wheat. Well, this isn't show-off time, little man. Stick to the basics, Frankie said. Ashley was already dialing the phone. I had forgotten to write down Cousin Ralphie's number, but of course Ashley had it in her head. Thank goodness. It's times like these that really frustrate me. Sometimes I just don't think I have a brain. Robert, I said, as Ashley dialed the number, are you sure you can do this? Of course I can. Chill, he said. I can do it as sure as there are 13 characters in the ancient Hawaiian alphabet. How do you fit all those facts into that pinhead head of yours? I asked. Shh, it's ringing, Ashley said. Cousin Ralphie's top 40 hour, a voice on the phone said. I couldn't believe it. It was Cousin Ralphie in my actual ear. We got through. Congratulations, you are the 15th caller, he said. Name 10 cities with the word rock, and you will be the lucky winner. On your mark, get set, go. I opened my mouth to speak, but only had a tiny squeak came out. Frankie saw the panic in my eyes. Breathe, Zip. Oxygen is power. Oxygen is power. I took a deep breath and tried again. I still sounded like there was a chipmunk stuck in my throat, but at least the sound came out. Little Rock, I yipped. And Rockville Center, I said. That's 2, Cousin Ralphie hollered. 8 more to go. Ashley tapped Robert on the back. You're on, genius, she said. Rockford, Nebraska. What? Robert whispered to me, and I repeated it into the phone. This kid is good, said Cousin Ralphie with a smile in his voice. Lay on some more. Keep going, Robert. Blowing Rock, North Carolina. Rock Island, Illinois. Castle Rock, Colorado. Robert said as I repeated each one to Cousin Ralphie. I put my hand over the phone and whispered to Frankie, How many is that? You got 6, Cousin Ralphie answered. We all stared at Robert. He just stared back at us. I'm thinking, he whispered. How about Rock City, Alabama? Emily chimed in. Remember, that's where I threw up the clam chowder in the hotel pool when we were driving to Florida? I was pretty disgusted by the memory, but I was glad she came up with it, so I repeated it to Cousin Ralphie. That's 7, he said, but I hear you kind of slowing down, caller. Not me, sir, I said. I have thousands more. Frankie, of course, looked at me like I was crazy. Robert was squeezing his nose and closing his eyes really tight. Rock Springs, Wyoming, he spit out. And then there's Little Rock, another Little Rock in Iowa. I repeated those to Cousin Ralphie. That's 9, young man. I need 1 more, and you are on your way to the Stone Cold Rock concert. And did I tell you that you're going to be riding on the band's personal tour bus? Okay, so boys and girls, think about that. If you had your very favorite singer ever, you not only got to go to their concert, but you got to ride on their tour bus. That would be awesome. I looked over at Robert. He looked stuck. Dig deep, little man, dig deep. Robert's whole body twisted. He looked like a baby chick hatching from an egg. You know, it felt like hours were going by. Time is running out, caller. Are you still there? Suddenly, Robert's face turned bright red. Red Rock, Ontario, he said. Without waiting even a half a second, I repeated what he said. Red Rock, Ontario, I screamed into the phone. There was a pause. I'm so sorry, Cousin Ralphie began. Red Rock, Ontario is in Canada. Which is just what I was going to say. I said that Red Rock, Ontario is a lovely spot, but unfortunately, it isn't the one I was going to say because we all know that Canada is not a state in the United States. It is its own Canada. Okay, I was stalling. Wouldn't you if your whole educational future was riding on this answer? Robert shook his head. I'm sorry, Hank. I'm all rocked out. I don't know. I looked desperately at Ashley. She shook her head. Frankie did too. They had nothing. It was up to me. My mind raced over all the cities in my head. We had all kinds of rocks. A blowing rock, a red rock, a little rock. Hey, why not? How about Big Rock? I guessed. I held my breath. Good answer, Cousin Ralphie called out. What's your name, son? Hank Zipser, sir. Well, pack your bags, Hank Zipser, because you are on your way to Philadelphia. Actually, Cousin Ralphie, I want to give the trip to my parents, Stan and Randy Zipser. They really deserve some quality time together. Your parents? Are they Stone Cold Rock fans? Oh my gosh, are they ever? My dad sings every one of their songs in the shower at least 3 times a week. He especially likes the song called I Was a Dirtbag Till I Found My Soap. He must be a real rocker, that Stan Zipser, Cousin Ralphie said. Oh, yes, he is, sir. He couldn't be more of a rocker. Stay right where you're at, kid. We're going to go to a commercial, and when we come back, I'll tell you all about the fabulous trip that you've won for your parental unit. Just then, the door to my sister's room swung open. My dad came in. I looked at him with his blue boxers, with his mechanical pencil stuck behind his ear. His hair was standing straight up from his head, and his newspaper was still folded to the crossword puzzle page. Any of you kids know an 8-letter synonym for an extinct rodent? He asked. I tried Pocket Rat, but that doesn't fit. Yeah, that's my dad. He's a real rocker. We will stop right there.